Take your CJ7 all the way to 11. Jeepin' with cool guy.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run you a nice little panoramic around here so you can see all the pieces that are replaced. So here's the passenger side floor pan, driver's side floor pan, the A column lower section, the beginning of the rocker panel, the front floor pan where it meets the rear floor pan, rocker panel, more. Then you've got your B column lower baffle section all welded in. And then over here we have our replacement rear floor, which I'm super happy with the fit and finish and the form of it. Switching to the other side, the other part of the rear floor pan, up and around to the other, the passenger side B column, lower baffle, and then you have your rear floor pan. Then you've got your rocker panel. Then you got then we're back to the A column and the front floor pan of the passenger side. And here we have the rocker panel. You can see the seam there. That will all be filled in with a little bit of Bondo. The nice thing about that flange is it doesn't leave a lot of area that you have to Bondo in. So a nice little 1/4 inch seam of Bondo sand down, and you're not Bondoing your Jeep to death, which is kind of cool. Ultimately, I still have to finish up this lower part that had rusted out when I took out the baffle, or the B column baffle, and fix that spot that's right behind the wheel well, or right in front of the wheel well, right behind the B column. And here we have really bad studio lighting of the inner, or the inner wheel well, rear wheel well, after I have plug welded all of the floor pan flange spots. That is your rear folding seat support bracket that I was telling you about earlier, where I tack welded the thing back in and got it all rust free. You can see how I have a small seam line that goes along with that rocker pan, or the not the rocker panel, the rear wheel well connection to, where I had to replace that steel line. That will all be just covered up with a little bit of Bondo. And then we have the rear floor pan, rear section, rear valance. It goes all the way across. So you can see here how I welded in this seam. Seen enough. I went out and did a little bit more research, filled in that weld, because that actually is factory. And then you can see the 4, 5, 6 spot welds, plug welds, that hold the rear arm, rear support arm of the rear floor pan into place against the rear fender. 1/4 panel, I don't know it. I can't tell the difference between a 1/4 panel or a fender. Whatever. Couple things to note on the rear floor pan. There's a lot of seam sealer that goes into basically this entire seam that runs along the floor pan with the rear wheel well. And there's also these gaps that go around the rear tailgate, back stop, whatever you want to call it, whatever that little ridge is right there. And those all get filled in with seam sealer. When you're going to buy a Jeep, an old Jeep, CJ or something like that, one of the places to really kind of check to see how well restored your Jeep is that you're going to be buying, or a potential problem area, is this section right here, right behind the B column, right in front of the A, or right in front of the wheel well, right in this gap, basically water trap, where the floor pan meets all 3 of these. This area almost seems to rust out all the time, because the water just seems to get in here and just sit here. It has nowhere to go. So what I did is I cut out the back part of this B column where all that rust was, when I had the lower part of the B column out, and the rear floor pan. So I had a nice area to get to. and then I re-welded in a new piece of metal. Once I replace the metal part on the wheel well here, this will all be back to nice clean metal. But people seem to just cover this area up with a ton of Bondo, caulk, rubber, all kinds of stuff to kind of fill in this hole. If you're fixing this, you're probably going to be fixing the panel of your floor pan, your B column, and your wheel well, because these things all seem to rust out at the same time. But when you're looking, see how much stuff they've got wedged in here. Factory is there is supposed to be some seam sealer here, not a big bunch of junk. So if there is a big bunch of junk there, realize that there is going to be a whole bunch of rust, possibly a hole right behind this section. And that ultimately goes right out through into the outer panel and then right around your actual wheel well. So let me show you what that looks like from the the outside. Here's your lower rocker panel. This piece right here is that back lip of your your B column. This right here is the lip, flange lip from your rear floor pan, and then here is where your B column support flange goes all the way up into this area. That rust area is right here. You can see where I've got this little line here and this little line here. This piece right here is actually that replacement metal piece. That was the part that I cut out, and then I tack welded that in from here, and then at that point I've got all, it's a pain in the ass to get the grind, to be able to grind down the welds after it, but it's worth it because it looks right. You get rid of all the rust and it just gets it into a nice place. The other cool thing about it is, you want to consider this cool, is it gives you the opportunity to put some seam sealer on the inside of the baffle, lower baffle piece, and that way, even if water gets in here, it's not going to get inside of this seam where the baffle connects to the B column, and then it won't rust out from the inside or the outside. This seems to rust out on like every Jeep that I've seen, even except for the really, really exceptional tubs that come from the Southwest. But the thing to watch out for when you're doing this is there's a ridge that's pressed into the metal that ends here and here. Good thing about that is that most of the rust happens directly underneath the actual roll bar plate. These are very thick metal plate / bolt or nuts. And then this is the rear, I guess it's the wheel well baffle, and it's a big square piece that runs the whole support area of the rear wheel well. So from what I've seen, most of it rusts right through here, and I guess there's supposed to be a drain hole here. At least on the really good tubs that I've seen, there's actually supposed to be a hole. Most of it, this is just a rusted out area. So what you can do, this is all 18 gauge steel, is I had a kind of a replacement tub, parts tub, that I cut out the side panel or side part of the wheel well and just reuse that as patch pieces. So this is actually original CJ steel, just from a different part of the Jeep. But you just cut it out around here, and then if you need to, then you can fix the top part of that baffle. This area rusts out a lot, so I just tack welded in a small sliver of metal there, and then I put the plate over the top of it. Obviously you're going to want to re-drill your holes for the roll bar support, and then drill in your hole for the drainage. But I think what I'm going to wind up doing is putting some seam sealer around these holes, or around these bolts, or around these nuts. These nuts! Just so that water doesn't get underneath here anymore, and then maybe run some seam sealer from the inside. But you can see how I tack welded. I've still got a little bit more grinding to get done just to really get it super level. But this is a common problem area with a fairly easy solution that you can replace on your own. Just remember, 18 gauge metal. I wanted to show you that you can do this. There's a lot of tubs out there that have a lot of holes and a lot of problems with them, but you can get them back and to keep 90% of the metal, the original metal, in there. Just with a little bit of work and a little bit of ingenuity. This took a little while. It was a big learning curve, but I've also seen there's not a lot out there of people doing this and showing how to do it. Now I know I didn't do it, show you all the welding and all of that stuff, but what I'm giving you is instructions on what to expect and how to do it, and then ultimately what it should look like when you're done. So I'm very proud of everything that's in here. I think it looks great. I'm really super excited to get this thing sandblasted because, man, this has been a lot of work.